They say the worst thing a man can hear is that his wife is cheating. They're wrong. The worst thing a man can hear is that his daughter knew and said nothing. I didn't find out from a message or lipstick on a shirt. I found out because my little girl, the one I raised, protected, built a life for, started bringing home designer bags and $1,000 shoes, gifts from a man I didn't know, a man who wasn't me, a man who wasn't her uncle or cousin or teacher, a man who was sleeping with her mother. And she knew it all, but said nothing because he bought her silence. That was the day I realized my daughter didn't just betray me, she was trained to. Trained to lie, trained to cover, trained to put a price tag on loyalty and call it normal. By the very woman I thought I'd built a family with. They thought I'd never find out. They thought I'd accept it, that I'd keep working, keep paying, keep bleeding, while they laughed behind bedroom doors and boutique receipts. But what they forgot is that the quietest man at the table is often the one who's been planning the longest. So no, I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I waited. And when the moment came, I didn't just take back control. I made sure they'd never forget what they sold to buy their fun. I didn't know I was raising a witness. There's a kind of silence in a family that doesn't feel peaceful. It feels like dust settling over something dead. And for the longest time, I thought I was just tired, working too much, missing the little moments because someone had to carry the weight. But now I realize I wasn't tired. I was being emptied, slowly, day by day, while the people I loved most looked me in the eye and told me everything was fine. I married young, too young maybe, but when you're from where I'm from, that's how it goes. You meet someone in high school, fall in love over shared milkshakes and long drives, and if you're lucky, or dumb, you put a ring on it before either of you have figured out who you really are. Her name was Rochelle. She was beautiful in the kind of way that made people stare too long at the grocery store. Blonde, sharp smile, that laugh that could make you feel like the only man alive. I wasn't special. I was just steady. And sometimes that's enough for a while. I worked in HVAC. Tough business, but honest. Long hours, sore hands, but I made enough to keep a roof over our heads and food in the fridge. Rochelle didn't have to work. That was by design. I wanted her to focus on the home, on our daughter, on being the heart of the family while I played the spine. And when Mia was born, I felt like I'd done something right, for once. She was the only perfect thing I'd ever helped create. Dark curls, eyes like her mother's, but softer, more curious. I remember the first time she wrapped her hand around my finger, and I swore I'd never let the world touch her. I worked longer, saved harder, put away every extra dime for her future, for college, for security. Not because she asked, because that's what men like me do. Rochelle and I had our fights, all couples do, but they were quiet, passive. She'd roll her eyes more often, stay out a little later with the girls, start buying clothes I didn't recognize, and say things like, "A woman needs to feel alive sometimes." I took it on the chin. Maybe I got soft. Maybe I was too busy chasing stability to see the cracks forming under my own roof. But I trusted her. I trusted them both. I thought if I just worked hard enough, paid for enough, protected enough, things would be okay. Mia was my shadow growing up, always asking to help me with small projects. "Daddy, can I hold the wrench? Daddy, what's that pipe for?" When she was 7, she made me a Father's Day card that said, "My dad fixes everything." I still have it, folded in half and taped together after years of being carried in my wallet. I read it sometimes now, when the house is too quiet and I need to remember that once I mattered. I'd come home after 12-hour days and still help with homework, fix leaky faucets, build shelves for Rochelle's endless collection of decorations. I never cheated, never even looked at another woman. I thought loyalty was enough. I thought showing up was enough. I thought loving them without asking for anything back was what made a man good. But love, I've learned, means nothing if it's not seen. Things started shifting slowly. Mia got older, started pulling away in those teenage ways that every parent expects but still isn't ready for. She became more private. Rochelle encouraged it. Let her have her space, she'd say. She's growing up. Fine. I let it go. Thought maybe this was the part where I step back and become the quiet, dependable dad who just funds everything from the background. But even then, something felt off. The way Mia's eyes flicked toward her mom when I asked about her day. The way Rochelle would always answer for her. She's fine. Don't pressure her. One night I came home and found Rochelle dressed like she was going to a club, not dinner with her friend Bethany. Mia was on the couch, scrolling her phone, barely looking up. I asked where her mom was headed and she shrugged. Just out. She said not to wait up. The way she said it, flat, casual, like it was nothing new, struck something in me. I stood there for a full minute, waiting for her to look at me again. She did. Weeks passed. Rochelle started bringing home expensive things. Perfume in bottles that looked like art pieces. A new purse that I knew cost more than my truck's transmission. She said they were gifts from girlfriends. Just little surprises. I wanted to believe her. God help me, I did. But then, Mia started showing up with new things too. Designer shoes, a watch I knew I didn't buy, a bracelet that shimmered like it belonged in a celebrity closet, not on the wrist of a 16-year-old girl from a working-class home. I asked her where she got it, and she said her mom's friend gave it to her. He's nice, she said. He's rich. The word hit me harder than I expected. He. Who's he? She blinked, slow. Just a friend of Mom's. He has connections. I think he owns some kind of company. I stared at her, trying to read her face, but she had Rochelle's talent, now masking discomfort with a casual smile. I told myself not to overthink it. Maybe Rochelle had made new friends. Maybe Mia was just lucky. Maybe I was being paranoid because I couldn't afford what they had anymore. But I knew better. I didn't say anything. Not yet. But I started watching, listening. Patterns emerged. Rochelle always went out Thursday nights. Mia's new gifts showed up on Fridays. I'd hear her laughing in her room, texting, always turning her screen when I walked by. Not in the way kids protect privacy, in the way guilty people protect secrets. Kept working, kept cooking, kept smiling, but inside, something had started to twist. I wasn't just being lied to. I was being handled, and the hands shaping the lie weren't just Rochelle's anymore. They lied like criminals. They lied like family. After a while, it wasn't about the gifts anymore. It was about the way Mia started talking to me. Not rude, not rebellious, just distant. Like I'd been demoted from father to background noise. She still called me dad, still ate my cooking, still asked for gas money, but it was different. Every word she said felt like it had been rehearsed. Every smile came a beat too late, like she was trying to mimic how a daughter is supposed to act. I remember asking her one night if she wanted to come with me to the hardware store. Used to be our thing. She loved going down the aisles, pretending she knew what the tools were for, asking questions just to hear me explain. That night, she said, "I have homework," without looking up. No eye contact, no apology, just a wall between us, cold and solid. I walked out the door alone, drove the long way, and parked outside for 10 minutes before going in, not because I forgot my list, because I was trying to remember when I became a stranger in my own home. Rochelle got bolder, too. She'd stopped pretending to care about excuses. She'd come home hours late with her makeup still perfect, her perfume thick in the air. She used to offer explanations. Bethany's car broke down, or we stayed to help clean up. Now she barely tried. I'm tired, she'd say, dropping her keys into the bowl like she hadn't just disappeared for 6 hours. And Mia? She never looked surprised. Never asked where her mom had been, as if they'd both agreed I didn't deserve answers anymore. One night, I caught a glimpse of Rochelle's phone screen as she set it down, a text from a contact labeled M. No heart emoji, no nickname, just the kind of bland disguise you use when you don't want to raise suspicion. I didn't read the message. I didn't need to. Her face said everything. That faint smile, the kind that doesn't come from someone you're married to, the kind that comes from someone new, someone's secret. But I stayed quiet, because if I said it out loud, I'd have to admit what I already knew. The next day, Mia came home from school with a new backpack. Not just any backpack. A luxury brand I couldn't pronounce, worth more than what I'd paid for our fridge. I asked her where she got it. She said, "A friend of Mom's. He thought it would be nice." She said it like that made sense, like it was normal for a grown man to buy expensive gifts for a teenage girl he wasn't related to. I asked, "Do you even know this man?" She shrugged. "Not really, but he's cool. He's generous." Then she added, "At least someone around here knows how to treat women." I didn't answer. I just walked out of the room and stood in the garage for an hour, staring at the shelves I'd built with my own hands, wondering when the house stopped being mine. It wasn't just the gifts, it was the tone, the ease, the way both of them carried themselves like they were part of some secret club and I was the janitor who wasn't allowed past the lobby. I started noticing conversations stopping when I entered the room. Whispers in the kitchen, quick glances exchanged during dinner. Mia used to tell me everything what happened at school, which teacher was unfair, which kid had a crush on her. Now she barely said 10 words in a row. And Rochelle? She stopped setting a place for me at the table when she ordered takeout, as if my hunger was my own fault. One evening, I came home early. I had a headache, wanted to lie down. The house was quiet, too quiet. I stepped in and heard voices from upstairs. Laughter. Rochelle and Mia. I stood by the stairs, listening. "She doesn't suspect a thing," a voice said. "Of course not," Rochelle replied, low and amused. Then Mia said, "I think he knows more than he says." Rochelle laughed. "Please, he's harmless." Harmless. That word. It hung in the air like poison. It wasn't anger that hit me, not right away. It was shame. The kind that crawls up your spine and settles in your throat. I turned around, walked back out to my truck, and sat there for a long time. No radio, no lights. Just the realization that they'd built an entire world behind my back, and they thought I was too blind or too broken to find the door. From that point on, I started watching, not in a dramatic, spy movie kind of way, just quietly. I checked receipts, logged times, noted which nights Rochelle was gone and which mornings Mia had new things. I started seeing patterns. Thursdays, Rochelle's book club, Mia's study night. Fridays, new perfume, new earrings, new packages on the porch. Saturdays, silence. I saw an Uber charge on Rochelle's shared account one. She didn't know I could still access. It ended at a downtown hotel I couldn't afford even with overtime. She didn't come home that night. She texted, "Staying with Bethany. Girls' weekend. Love you." No punctuation, no emoji, just obligation. I didn't respond. The next morning, Mia came down for breakfast wearing a necklace I'd never seen. Gold. Real. I asked her if it was from Mom's friend. She smiled. "Yeah, he has good taste." That was the moment I knew. She wasn't covering for her mom anymore. She was participating. They thought I was harmless. That's exactly what I needed them to think. I didn't confront them. I didn't blow up. I didn't demand answers they were never going to give me honestly. I'd spent too many years handing out second chances like free samples, hoping that people I loved would finally choose to love me back. But when I heard my wife call me harmless, I realized something. They hadn't just stopped respecting me. They'd started using me. Like a wall socket, always there, always giving, never asking questions. And so, I did the one thing they never expected. I stopped talking. And I started planning. The first step was the bank. I had 2 accounts, one for household expenses, one I never told Rochelle about. Just something I kept for emergencies. I started moving funds. Small amounts, spread over weeks, just enough to go unnoticed. Then I closed the joint savings, told the bank there had been unauthorized activity, locked everything behind new passwords, changed my direct deposit, canceled every automatic bill that had her name on it. Second step, the house. It was mine. Bought before the marriage, paid off. Rochelle had never been on the deed, just an oversight from our early years that she never noticed or questioned. I visited the county office and double-checked the records. Then I met with a lawyer. Quiet guy, old school, wore flannel to the office. I told him everything, every receipt, every Uber charge, every lie. He didn't blink. "Just ask, how fast do you want this to happen?" "Fast," I said, "but clean." We started drafting eviction paperwork. Yes, eviction. Because while she'd lived in my home for years, she wasn't protected. And Mia, she was a minor, but I had full legal custody on paper. Rochelle never bothered to contest it years ago, figuring paperwork didn't matter in a happy family. Turns out, paperwork is everything when the love runs out. I waited, watched. Mia brought home a new phone, iPhone Pro Max, latest model. Rochelle had a new bracelet. I checked the card statements. Nothing. That meant he was still paying. Her affair partner. The man I hadn't met but knew more about than he'd ever guess. I had his name, his company, his address. I had hotel bookings in his name. One of them matched the Uber ride Rochelle took on a Thursday night, the same night she claimed she was sick in bed. So I sent him a gift, an envelope. No return address. Inside, a photo of Mia in the passenger seat of his car. I'd seen it on her Instagram story, geotagged, time-stamped. I wrote one sentence on a Post-it note. She's 16, you gave her jewelry, you gave her rides, and now I'm giving you a lawyer. I never heard from him. But 3 days later, Mia came home with tears in her eyes, phone in hand, screaming at her mother. Rochelle was pale. She looked at me like I'd lit a fire in the middle of the living room. She asked, "What did you do?" I said I started telling the truth. That night I handed her the papers. Eviction. Divorce. Custody modification. She said, "You can't do this." I said, "I already did." She called her mother, called mine, said I was overreacting, said I was being cruel. They both tried calling me. I didn't answer. She asked, "Where are we supposed to go?" I said, "He bought you hotel rooms before. Ask him for one more." Then I turned to Mia. "You too." She looked at me like I'd stabbed her. "Dad, please. I didn't mean..." I cut her off. "You chose her, and you chose him. Over and over again. I begged you to be honest, and you cashed in your silence like it was allowance." They left, not with tears, with silence. Cold, brittle silence. And when the door closed behind them, I didn't feel triumph. I felt stillness. Because the war was over. And I didn't just win. I ended it. You can't save someone who's been taught you're disposable. After they left, the house was quieter than I expected. Not peaceful, not yet, just still. Like the moment after a storm when everything's wet, broken, but somehow lighter. I sat in Mia's room for a long time. The posters were still on the walls. Her perfume still lingered in the air. I found the card she made for me years ago, "Best Dad in the World," in crooked handwriting, decorated with glitter glue and hearts that had faded to dull pink. I held it in my hands and realized something that hollowed me out more than anger ever could. She meant it once. There was a time when she believed I was her anchor, her protector, her guide. And somewhere along the line, that belief got sold off. One bracelet at a time, one lie at a time, until I wasn't Dad anymore. I was just a man who paid the bills. Rochelle, I don't think she ever loved me the way I loved her. I think she loved being loved being adored, loved the safety I built, the roof I kept over her head, the stability I bled for. But she never saw me. Not really. Not past the usefulness. I was a role, a function, an expectation met. And Mia? She became her mother's daughter, not by blood, but by blueprint. That's the part that hurt most. Not the affair, not the deception, but the slow inheritance of betrayal passed from mother to child like it was wisdom. They didn't just lie to me. They learned how to lie together, and somehow they convinced themselves that what they were doing wasn't wrong. It was necessary. It was smart. It was just how women survive men like me. As if love, loyalty, sacrifice, protection were weaknesses. As if the quiet man who pays the mortgage and stays up late fixing the water heater is a fool to pity, not a man to honor. I didn't throw out her things. I boxed them, labeled them, drove them to her sister's house and left them on the porch. No note, no drama, just distance. Mia texted me a week later, said she missed me, said she didn't know how bad it had gotten, said she was sorry. I didn't reply. Not because I didn't love her, but because I did. And part of love is letting people feel the full weight of their choices. I go to work like I always have. come home to a quiet house, make simple dinners, watch the sun go down from the back porch I built with my own hands, and for the first time in years, I sit in the silence without feeling like I'm failing, because I'm not failing anymore. I'm healing. Some folks will say I went too far, that she was just a kid, that Rochelle made her do it, that I should have been more patient, more forgiving, more fatherly. But here's what those people don't understand. Loyalty isn't unconditional when trust is turned into currency. When your own child looks you in the eye and chooses money over truth, when your wife trains you in the art of silence and smiles, when every sacrifice you've made becomes invisible the moment someone richer walks in, that's not a family. That's a cult of comfort, and I refuse to be its silent priest. They say fathers are supposed to be the foundation, but what happens when the people standing on your back start breaking your spine just to reach higher? What do you do when your wife cheats and your daughter covers it up because she benefits too? Some people will say this story's too cruel. Others will say he did what he had to do. But I want to hear from you. Was I right to evict them both? Can a child really be innocent when she participates in betrayal? Is there a point where even a father has to walk away? Tell me what you think in the comments. Speak your truth. Because silence is how this cycle keeps surviving. This has been Leap Our Tales, where we don't just tell stories to entertain. We tell them to remember what's real. And sometimes the truth hurts more than the lie ever did.